Hello again from the Vapor Shop in Noonan, Georgia, located at 144 Temple Avenue. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Vapor Shop. Vapor spelled with an E. If you tried to find it on Google, it might replace it with an O. You need an E. Okay. Alright, so today we're going to show you how to set up just a regular Kanger starter set. This is an Evod starter set made by Kanger, and the setup process will be similar for most starter kits. You'll have a battery, you'll have a tank, you'll have a base that screws into the tank, and then you'll have a coil that screws into the base. So here we go. First, we're going to talk about these pieces. So the battery comes in the off position. You click it 5 times to turn it on. Now when you press a button, it's firing. To turn it off, you click it 5 times again, and it won't actually fire. It's a good idea to turn it off if you're going to put it in a pocket with other things in the pocket, or a purse, something like that. You don't want it firing when it's in your pocket by itself. It will eventually just ruin the coil that's in there. So here's a couple of things. In a moment, I'm going to fill this up with liquid, and we're going to actually set it up. But inside this starter set, there's a couple of things to look for. So you open your set, and in this starter set, you're going to have 2 batteries, 2 tanks, and 7 coils. There'll be 1 installed in each setup, and then a box of 5. There'll be 5 more coils, and you'll have a wall charger and the USB cord that plugs into that wall charger and screws onto your battery. Here is what that looks like. Take the wall charger, plug the USB cord into it, and there's a proprietary connection for this style of battery. You take that, and inside of here, there's a little connector. So these threads inside here are called 510 threads. This is a 510 charger. So you screw this onto here. You only need to screw this on until it makes contact. You don't need to keep tightening. If you keep tightening that, what happens is inside of there, the little connection, if you over tighten, you'll push that down into the body. You'll keep pushing it and keep pushing it until you either push it through or it comes loose, and now that connector in there will be loose. So whenever you tighten this onto the base of the tank, you only tighten it until it makes connection. You don't keep tightening it. The same thing with the charger. When you screw it onto the charger, you just screw it on until it makes connection. You don't want to over tighten that. The parts you do want to tighten well are the coil into the base. So this part, you tighten that as well as you can with just finger tightening. You get that nice and snug in there. And then the base with the coil screwed into it, screw it into the tank, and that part you want to get as tight as you can with your fingers. So everything gets tightened well except for what screws into here. You only screw that to where it makes connection. This will make your batteries last longer, and it'll keep them operating correctly. Another thing to look out for is on this base, there are a couple of O-rings, a couple of silicone gaskets. There's one here and one here. If this gasket here, this one, gets twisted, it might be okay. But if it gets twisted to the point where it comes up and it comes off of this and it's up here, then while this tank is completely assembled, it will leak very badly. It'll leak out of here, it may leak out of the holes, it may even leak out of here because there's no more seal inside, no vacuum. So whenever you replace your coil, whenever you take your base off to refill your tank, you want to make sure, one, that these seals are still there and that they're not twisted and pinched or missing. And you also want to make sure one other thing. As this is all tight, when you unscrew it, sometimes the coil will unscrew because this silicone meets that post inside there. As you're turning it, if the coil stays still and the base unscrews from the coil, then it won't make connection, it won't be sealed, and it may leak. So every time you refill this tank or replace this coil, make sure that this is tight before you reclose it. Okay, now here's a couple of other things that new vapors should look out for. Since this is a Kanger Evod starter set, it's going to have some stamps and emblems and symbols on it that let you know it's a legitimate product. Here on the base of the Evod tank, it says Kanger Tech Evod. It's written across the tank there. If your Evod is missing that, it's not a real Evod by Kanger. It may not work right, it may work okay, but it's probably not as high quality as this. On the battery, on the bottom, there is a stamp here with a K for Kanger and some type of serial number there. That lets you know that this is a real Kanger product. One other thing to look for is on the coil itself, there is an ohm rating. It's located here. It's hard to see, but you can see it near a light source or a lamp or whatever. This one says, this coil says 2.5 ohms. Now, when you buy this set, this battery fires at 3.7 volts, and that's all it does. It's not variable voltage or variable wattage. So this coil is a little bit high in resistance. Here at the Vapor Shop, we would send you home with 1.8 coils. That's not something you have to memorize right away, but it's a good idea for you to use 1.8s if this is the battery you're using. You can use 2.2 ohm coils, but you shouldn't use resistance this high. All right. One other thing is, new vapors have trouble with flooding, and experienced vapors too. But when I was new, there were a lot of flooding issues, and I didn't know what the deal was. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this tank up, and then I'm going to explain to you how to solve your flooding problem, or at least alleviate it, help it some. So here I've got just a random liquid. It's a Nick Vape Apple Cinnamon. We're going to fill the tank, and then I'm going to show you about leaking and flooding issues, or flooding issues rather. So you take your tank, and the center post in there is for air only. You don't want liquid in that center post. So you fill it by looking in the side window and putting the liquid against the side and squeezing it in there and slowly righting the tank. No liquid inside the center, just in the tank. And then you take the base with the coil screwed in tightly and screw all of it down into there. Now, there's liquid in the tank, everything's screwed in tightly, and we'll let this sit for a minute. I've got the liquid in there. It's going to take a second to soak into the wicks and to get into the coil. So, when I was new and I had flooding issues, it was a real pain in the butt. So, here's what you do. Sometimes in using the device, there's condensation that builds up in here just from vaporizing the liquid. You'll see droplets and condensation inside this clear tip. That's normal, and that's not really a big deal. But if you go to vape this and it bubbles constantly, it feels like it's bubbling, you don't get a lot of vapor. You get sometimes the taste of this e-liquid in your mouth because there's liquid coming up, and it's just bubbling and gurgling, and it's called flooded. So there's a few things you can do. One thing is you can turn it upside down and lay it over a napkin or something like that and just prop it up. And over time, the liquid in the center will slowly run out onto the napkin, and then you rewrite it, and whatever was in that center will have come out, and it shouldn't be flooded anymore. Another thing you can do is hold it firmly and fling this at the ground. You just fling the crud out of it and maybe towards the ground outside or into a trash can. That will fling everything inside that center area out and into the trash or on the ground, and it will no longer be flooded. If draining it that way, just what's in the middle, doesn't work, and flinging it out doesn't work, then you may need to replace the coil inside. It could be bad, it may be old, but that's how you get rid of flooding in this style of tank. So that basically wraps it up. That's how you fill and operate your starter set. That's how you take care of flooding. Things to look for to make sure you got a legitimate product. And if you want to find us online, again, you can try us at Facebook, thevaporshop.com, vapor with an E, or thevaporshop.com. Thank you very much. Keep vaping.